My name is Sarah Chun, and I'm 29 years old. 3 months ago, I buried my father while my mother-in-law tried to steal his fortune in the same breath. Today, she's facing federal charges and has lost everything she tried to take. But I should start from the beginning. My father, James Chun, was a first-generation immigrant who built a pharmaceutical empire from nothing. He came to America with $200 in his pocket and a chemistry degree that wasn't recognized here. He worked 3 jobs while getting recertified and eventually developed a revolutionary drug delivery system that made him worth $400 million by the time I was born. Dad was my everything. My mother died when I was 5, and he raised me alone, somehow balancing building his company with being at every school play, every science fair, every moment that mattered. He taught me Mandarin and English, chemistry and compassion, business and integrity. Money is just a tool, Sarah, he'd say. What matters is what you build with it. I met Nathan right in my junior year at Stanford. He was charming, pre-med, from what seemed like a good family. His mother, Patricia Wright, was a federal judge. His father, Charles, was a prominent surgeon. They had the kind of old money refinement that made my father's new wealth seem gaudy in comparison. Patricia hated me from the first moment we met. "So you're the Chinese girl Nathan's been seeing," she said at our first dinner, emphasizing Chinese like it was a disease. How exotic. Throughout dinner, she made little comments. How fortunate I was that my father could afford Stanford. How difficult it must be to navigate American society with my background. How she hoped I wasn't taking advantage of Nathan's generous nature. Nathan laughed it off later. "She's just protective," he said. "She'll warm up to you." She never did. When Nathan proposed after medical school, Patricia pulled me aside. "I want to be clear," she said. "I know what you're after. Nathan's trust fund, our family connections. But I'll be watching you. One wrong move, and I'll make sure you get nothing." "I don't want your money," I said. "I have my own." She laughed. "Your father's money, you mean? What happens when that runs out? These new money fortunes never last." The wedding was a battle. Patricia insisted on planning everything, then complained about every expense. "Such an ostentatious waste," she'd say about flowers my father paid for. When Dad offered to cover the entire wedding, she was furious. "We don't need charity from immigrants," she hissed when she thought I couldn't hear. After the wedding, things got worse. Patricia would call Nathan constantly, always with some emergency that required him to leave immediately. She'd plan family events and forget to invite me. When we visited, she'd speak to Nathan in rapid French, knowing I couldn't understand, then laugh when I asked what they were discussing. "You're being paranoid," Nathan would say when I complained. "Mom's just particular." The breaking point came when I had a miscarriage 2 years into our marriage. I was devastated. Nathan was at work when it happened, and in my grief, I called Patricia, hoping for some maternal comfort. "Well," she said coldly, "perhaps it's for the best. Mixed-race children face so many challenges. And with your mental health history." "What mental health history?" I asked through tears. "Oh, Nathan hasn't told you? I've been documenting your episodes. The crying, the paranoia about me, the inability to maintain relationships with his family. It's all very concerning." I hung up, shaking. When Nathan came home, I told him what she'd said. He sighed. "She didn't mean it that way. You're too sensitive." That's when I realized I wasn't just married to Nathan. I was married to his mother. Meanwhile, my father was my rock. He never said, "I told you so," though he'd expressed concerns about the right family before the wedding. Instead, he included me more in his business, teaching me about the pharmaceutical industry, introducing me to his lawyers and accountants. "I want you to understand how everything works," he said. Just in case. 5 years before he died, Dad made a decision that would change everything. He created the Chun Medical Foundation, a charitable organization focused on providing free medications to low-income families. But it was structured in a unique way, as a private foundation with very specific bylaws. "I'm making you the executive director," he told me. "But we're keeping it quiet for now. I want you to learn without pressure or interference." I threw myself into the work. While Nathan was building his surgical career and Patricia was judging my every move, I was quietly running a foundation that controlled $200 million in assets. We funded clinics, research programs, and medication assistance programs. I hired staff, managed investments, and learned the ins and outs of nonprofit law. Dad's public will was simple. Some money to various charities, his house to me, and a trust fund of $10 million that I'd receive at 30. Everyone assumed that was the bulk of his estate. What they didn't know was that he'd been quietly transferring his pharmaceutical patents, real estate holdings, and investment portfolios to the foundation over the years. The will was just for show. Never reveal your full hand, he taught me. Let people think they know your worth. Their assumptions are your protection. When Dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, everything accelerated. He had maybe 6 months. I wanted to spend every moment with him, but Patricia suddenly became very interested in our family. We should have dinner with your father, she'd suggest. Family is so important in difficult times. At these dinners, she'd probe about his estate planning. I hope you have good lawyers, James. So many families are torn apart by poorly planned estates. Dad would smile politely and change the subject, but I could see him watching her, evaluating. One night, after Patricia left, he said, "She's going to come after you when I'm gone." "Nathan won't let that happen," I said, still naive. Dad just patted my hand. "Make sure everything with the foundation is ironclad. And Sarah, start documenting everything. Every interaction, every threat, every attempt to undermine you. You'll need it." The last month of his life, I moved back home to care for him. Nathan complained about my absence, pushed by his mother. "It's not appropriate for you to abandon your husband," Patricia said. "There are nurses for this sort of thing." "He's my father," I said. "I'm not leaving him to die with strangers." "So dramatic," she sighed. "This emotional instability is exactly what I've been concerned about." Dad died on a Tuesday morning, holding my hand. His last words were in Mandarin. "I built it all for you. Don't let them take it." The funeral was beautiful, packed with people whose lives he'd touched. Nathan sat beside me, checking his phone while I gave the eulogy. Patricia sat behind us, and I could feel her eyes on me the entire time. As we gathered at the reception, Patricia approached with 2 men in expensive suits. "Sarah, dear," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "This is Mr. Davidson and Mr. Klein. They're here to help with this difficult situation." "What situation?" I asked. She pulled out a folder. "Your recent mental health crisis, of course. The paranoid delusions, the obsessive behavior regarding your father's care. As a federal judge and your mother-in-law, I've petitioned for conservatorship over your inheritance until you're stable enough to manage it." The room went silent. I could feel hundreds of eyes on me. "You're what?" I said. "It's for your own good," she continued, voice dripping with false concern. "Your father left you a substantial amount. $10 million is too much for someone in your condition to handle. I'll manage it until you're better." "I don't have a mental health condition," I said clearly. "Denial is part of the illness," Mr. Davidson chimed in. "We have statements from family members, documented incidents." "You mean lies from Patricia?" I interrupted. Nathan stepped forward. "Sarah, Mom's just trying to help. Maybe it would be good to have some oversight." "You're in on this?" I stared at my husband in disbelief. He couldn't meet my eyes. "The medical bills from your miscarriage, your erratic behavior lately, abandoning our marriage to care for your father. Mom's right. You need help." That's when I laughed. Full, genuine laughter that made Patricia step back. "Oh, Patricia," I said. "You really should have done more research." I pulled out my phone and sent a quick text. Within minutes, a team of lawyers entered the reception hall, led by Robert Kim, senior partner at Kim, Martinez and Associates, and the Foundation's legal counsel. "Mrs. Wright," Robert said smoothly, "I understand you're attempting to establish conservatorship over my client. I should inform you that any such action would be contested vigorously. Furthermore, your statements here today constitute defamation and attempted fraud." "How dare you?" Patricia started. "Additionally," Robert continued, "as a federal judge, you should be aware that filing false statements with the court is a felony. We have recordings of you discussing this plan with your son, including your intent to misrepresent Ms. Chen's mental state for financial gain." Patricia's face went white. "You recorded private conversations?" "No," I said. "But Nathan did. He's been sending me videos of your strategy sessions for the past month. He thought they were going to vanish from my cloud storage, but funny thing about being married to someone, you tend to know their passwords." I turned to Nathan, whose face was cycling through shock, betrayal, and rage. "You kept sending them even after I changed my password. Did you really think Patricia 123 was secure?" "But more importantly," Robert added, "Ms. Chen's inheritance from the will is minimal compared to her actual assets. She's the executive director of the Chen Medical Foundation, which controls approximately $200 million in assets. She's been running it successfully for 5 years. Any attempt to claim she's mentally incompetent would be laughable in court. The room erupted in whispers. Patricia's lawyers were frantically conferring with her. "That's impossible," Patricia said. "We would have known." "No," I said calmly. "You wouldn't have. Because you were too busy calling me a gold digger to realize I was already worth more than your entire family combined. You were too racist to see past my Chinese girl status to notice I graduated summa cum laude with a degree in biochemistry and an MBA. You were too arrogant to think an immigrant's daughter could be anything more than a trophy wife." "Sarah, please," Nathan said, reaching for me. "Let's discuss this privately." "We're done," I said, stepping back. "Your mother just tried to steal my inheritance at my father's funeral. And you helped her. We're getting divorced." But I wasn't finished. I turned to the crowd, many of whom were pharmaceutical industry leaders, researchers, and doctors who had known my father. "I want everyone here to know what just happened," I said, my voice carrying across the room. Judge Patricia Wright attempted to defraud the Chin Medical Foundation, which provides free medications to over 50,000 low-income families annually. She did this based on fabricated claims of mental illness, motivated by greed and racism. "You can't prove," Patricia started. "Actually, I can," I said. I pulled out a tablet and connected it to the reception hall's AV system. "Let me show you something." The screen filled with email exchanges between Patricia and her lawyers, discussing how to neutralize the Chinese influence on Nathan's inheritance prospects. Videos of her strategy sessions played, including one where she said, "Once we have control of the $10 million, we can leverage it to find out what else the old man was hiding. These people always have hidden assets." The federal prosecutor in attendance, one of Dad's old friends, was taking notes. "This is illegal," Patricia shrieked. "Those are private." "Actually," Robert interrupted, "they were sent to Ms. Chun by your son. She had every right to keep them. And now they're evidence in what I suspect will be multiple cases: attempted fraud, conspiracy, and given your position as a federal judge, corruption charges." The next 3 months were a whirlwind. Patricia was suspended pending investigation. The Judicial Review Board found 17 cases where she'd shown bias against Asian defendants. Nathan tried to claim our marital assets, but discovered that everything was either in my name or the foundation's. Even our house, which he thought was jointly owned, was actually owned by an LLC I'd established before our marriage. "You tricked me," he accused during one of our divorce proceedings. "No," I said. "I protected myself. Your mother told me from day one that she'd make sure I got nothing. I just made sure she was wrong." The divorce was finalized in record time. Nathan got exactly what he brought to the marriage: his medical degree and his student loans, which I'd never helped pay despite his assumptions. He also got his mother's legal bills, which were mounting rapidly. Patricia was disbarred and convicted of attempted fraud and conspiracy. The federal charges ended her career and her reputation. Charles divorced her, revealing that he'd been looking for an exit for years, but stayed because of her position. Without her income or status, she lost everything. Last I heard, Nathan was working at a small clinic in rural Montana, the only place that would hire him after the scandal. Patricia lives in a one-bedroom apartment, her assets frozen pending civil lawsuits from Asian families who claimed she'd discriminated against them. As for me, I'm thriving. The foundation has doubled its reach, and I've started a scholarship program for first-generation immigrant students studying medicine. I named it after my father. I kept one video from Nathan's recordings. It's Patricia at her most vicious, talking about how she'd put me in my place once she had control of my money. Sometimes, when I'm having a bad day, I watch it and remember my father's words. "Let people think they know your worth. Their assumptions are your protection." Patricia assumed I was just a Chinese gold digger who married her son for money. She assumed my father's wealth was all in his will. She assumed I was weak, unstable, and easy to control. She assumed wrong. At Dad's funeral, she thought she was stealing my inheritance. Instead, she revealed herself to hundreds of witnesses and lost everything she'd spent her life building. Her greed and racism, which she'd hidden behind a judge's robes for decades, were finally exposed. My father always said money was just a tool. Patricia tried to use it as a weapon against me. She learned too late that I'd been taught by a master craftsman. The Chun Medical Foundation continues to grow, helping families who can't afford life-saving medications. It's my father's true legacy, Not the money Patricia tried to steal, but the lives we save every day. Sometimes the best revenge isn't what you take from someone. It's what you were building all along while they were too blinded by prejudice to see it. My father would be proud. And that's worth more than any inheritance. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video. Stay stunned.